I got married at age 22 because of cultural and religious pressures. Even though I felt unsure, I proceeded with the marriage, but it led me to ongoing feelings of regret and second guessing. This conflict led me to be unfaithful to my wife. My wife still wants to save our marriage. This is what I'm wrestling with. Should I leave my wife since I've always regretted my marriage? Okay, there's a lot of ground to cover here. Let's see if we can do so in a relatively condensed fashion. The church holds that for a marriage to be valid, it has to be entered into freely, right? If one is under real external pressures to marry, and it doesn't come from a free act within, then the marriage is not valid. I've not been given enough information here to assess the extent of these cultural and religious pressures that were exerting some kind of force upon this person when he entered marriage. But I have very good reason to believe that there is something worth salvaging here. All marriages go through very difficult times. Many marriages suffer with the wound of infidelity, as this marriage has. And all marriages have, to some extent, certain external pressures that influenced the decision to marry. If it's a shotgun wedding, if somebody's holding a gun to your head and saying, you must marry this person, that's not a valid marriage, right? But merely the existence of cultural or religious pressures that influence the decision, that does not necessarily invalidate the marriage. The reason I believe there is solid ground to continue in this relationship is because the wife, despite the infidelity she has suffered from her husband, has said, I want to save this marriage. That is the kind of woman you want to spend your life with, right? Who will love you through anything. Right? This is the kind of woman you want to give your heart to. This is the kind of woman you want to build a life with. Could it be that there were imperfections going in that are regrettable? Of course, everyone experiences that. Everyone. Is that a reason to say, I wish I had never married this person? No. A lot of people think when the trials, the inevitable trials of married life come along, a lot of people think, whoa, time out. I didn't bargain for this. I didn't sign up for this. Well, in fact, you did. I like to remind couples that they exchanged their vows, and they are vows, right? That means irrevocable. A married couple exchanges their vows, at least in a Catholic setting, in front of an altar of sacrifice and below a crucifix, and in the context of the Mass, which is the representation of the sacrifice of Christ the bridegroom for his bride. And I love this artistic depiction of what happened at the cross. And here, I'll quote Bishop Fulton Sheen. Do you know what's happening at the foot of the cross? Nuptials, I tell you, nuptials. Did you hear that? Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. How did Christ love the church? By saying to his bride, here represented by the woman who is the symbol of the church at the foot of the cross, the bridegroom says to the bride, the new Adam to the new Eve, he says, this is my body given up for you in an act of total sacrificial outpouring. Every marriage will take you to the cross. Many people, when they encounter this cross in married love, say, too much, didn't bargain for it, I'm out of here. And my heart aches for those who encounter those sufferings that they consider too much. And they hear those voices, just as Christ did. You come down from that cross. Come down from that cross. This is the temptation in all of life, to believe that we can have the happiness we long for without the path to it, which is the cross. If we would but with God's grace hold on and keep going, pressing through those excruciating trials, that's what they are. I don't doubt that you have been through excruciating trials. Why do I say excruciating? Because look at the word, excruce, from the cross, out of the cross, right? When something is excruciating, it's the pain of the crucifixion. It's the pain that comes out of the cross, excruciating. Marriage is excruciating. But what are the glorious, stunningly marvelous fruits that come when we embrace that crucifixion? Those excruciating trials. We also begin to taste the glories. And those who have tasted those glories can say, people like St. Paul, for example, I consider the sufferings as nothing compared to the glory to which those sufferings lead. Another way of saying the same thing is this: we are called to live the theology of our bodies, and if we pay attention to the theology of our bodies, we will learn this. Joy leads to sorrow, which leads to glory, and this is the light that illuminates the path to happiness. Let me say it again. The theology of the body. What our bodies say, and I'll explain that in a minute, but our bodies tell this story. What story? Joy leads to sorrow, leads to glory, and this is the light that illuminates the path to the happiness we really long for. Astute Catholics will recognize I'm referring to the mysteries of the Rosary, the joyful, the sorrowful, the glorious, and the luminous, the mysteries of light. How do our bodies tell that story of those mysteries? The call to union, which is revealed through the male-female difference, what John Paul II calls the spousal meaning of the body. A man's body makes no sense by itself. A woman's body makes no sense by itself. Seen in light of each other, we see a call to Holy Communion. And that Holy Communion brings a beautiful, marvelous, God-given joy. But the natural fruit of that joy of union is that the union of the two typically leads to a third, and written right into the experience of pregnancy and childbirth is a sorrow, a pain, an agony, a labor. Christ himself, the night before he was crucified, compared what was about to happen to him, words right out of his own mouth. What is about to happen, he says, is like the pain of a woman in labor. She cries out in that agony. But the moment she holds that child, she forgets the sorrow and rejoices in the glory of this new life. There it is. Joy of communion leads to the sorrow of labor pains, leads to the glory of new life. This is the light that illuminates the path. Whenever some voice is saying, you can have the happiness you want, you can have the glory you desire, you can have the joy and the ecstasy for which you yearn without the sorrow, run to Jesus, because that is the voice of the enemy according to Jesus himself. When Peter came to Jesus and said, you don't need to go through this, you can have it without that, Jesus' response to the first pope was to call the first pope Satan. Get behind me, Satan. So even the first pope can make this mistake, right? Shouldn't be surprised when you and I make that mistake. But I want to hold out to you, my brother, whatever excruciating trials you are going through in this relationship, stay on that cross. And those sufferings hold in themselves, just like the sufferings of a woman in labor, hold in themselves the glory and joy of holding that new life, the sufferings, the excruciating trials of your marriage, hold the promise within of a glory that is dependable. You can count on it. It's coming. Not because I told you, not because I promised. What is my promise worth? You can measure that for yourself. But it's God's promise, and God cannot lie. The joy leads to sorrow, leads to glory. Let this light illuminate your path.